Okay, this is like my third time trying to make this video, so let's see if it works. So ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like, you know, no matter where I went, what I did, or who I was with, if there was a ghost, a spirit, or anything like that, it always made itself known to me. Like, I say this went on about until like I was maybe 18 or so. So like, let's start back like with a story like when it was just me, my older sister, my other sister, my mom, and my dad. So around this time, we lived in a house, and in this house there was 2 bedrooms. We had a den, which we called the playroom, the kitchen, and the living room, and a hallway. So in order to get to the bedrooms, you have to go to the hallway. In the hallway, there's the 2 rooms, there's a restroom, and you could go into the living room through the hallway. And you could also go into the living room through the kitchen. The kitchen was on the right, and the hallway was in the middle. So I remember me and my sister, we were in the playroom, and at this time we were listening to YouTube. I remember we were listening to Britney Spears. I don't remember what song it was, but it was like the video where she's like walking, like she's on the beach, she's walking on the bridge and whatnot. So we were listening to that song or whatever, right? And she tells me, "Oh, hey Julio, I'm gonna go tell my mom something." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine, go for it. I'll wait for you here." So there I am, I'm waiting. My sister went. She went to the living room to go tell my mom something. I don't know what she wanted to tell her, but she left. So in this playroom, we also had a restroom, and you know, this restroom always gave me like eerie vibes. Like, I just never felt comfortable there. I never felt comfortable in that restroom. It was off-putting to me. So I remember just hearing my sister. She's like, "Julio." I'm like, "Brittany?" She's like, "Julio, come." I'm just like, "Oh, where are you?" She's like, "I'm in the restroom, come." I was like, "Oh, okay." So pause the video, and I start going to the restroom. So I open the doors to the restroom, and it's dark in there. Like, it's just dark. Like, the light won't turn on, like, and I don't see her in there. And in this restroom, we also have a shower. So we have those type of showers that's like, you know, kind of transparent, but it's like pixelated, so you can't really see who's behind it, but you can tell somebody's in there. So I hear her calling me, and then she's like, I'm like, "Brittany, where are you?" And then she's like, "I'm in the shower, come." And I remember just like looking, like kind of putting my head into like the restroom so I could like look towards the shower. And all I see is just like this tall black figure behind the pixelated like glass. I'm like, "Brittany." She's like, come inside, I'm in the shower." I remember just getting so scared, and I just ran. I ran to the living room, and sure enough, my sister was right there with my mom. I can't really have anybody to vouch for me for this, but I know what I saw, and I was not crazy. I'll go ahead and fast forward to a couple, like maybe a lot of years later, 10 years later. We no longer lived in the house. At this point, we were living in San Pedro. We lived in the project San Pedro. You know, my mom's a single mother of 7. So, you know, it was help for us. And it was pretty big. You know, it had 5 bedrooms, 4 on top, 1 on the bottom. And the living room was in the bottom, the kitchen was in the bottom, and 1 bedroom was in the bottom. All the other 4 bedrooms were upstairs. So I remember every night before I would go to sleep, you know, I'll go ahead and check on every one of my siblings just to make sure like they're asleep, make sure they're okay and whatnot. I just wouldn't go downstairs. I'm like, no. I'm just like, I'm not going down there at night. I'm like, it looked way too dark, way too scary. I was like, I don't get good advice from here, but no. So I remember this one particular day, it was around the time that my mom was getting into religion, and she would, you know, talk to us a lot about the Bible, about God and whatnot. And my sister would say like, "Oh, you know, every time I try reading the Bible in my room, like my closet just starts shaking." And you know, we kind of brushed it off like, "Oh, whatever, like she's crazy." But I believed her because I've seen a lot of stuff. So I was like, like, yeah, I believe you. So I remember this day, my brother, he told me, he's like, "Oh, bro, can you sleep with me?" Because my sister, who normally sleeps with him in that room, she wasn't there that day, and he doesn't like to sleep alone. I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, you know, it's fine." So it's nighttime already. I'm about to go to sleep. So I do what I always do every night. I go to everybody's room to make sure that, you know, they're asleep and whatnot. But before I go into everybody's room this day, I'm just like, hey, like, you know what? So my sister said, like, she feels this way, like, whenever she reads the Bible and whatnot. You know, I'm going to go ahead and pray. Like, let me just get in between, like, in the middle of the hallway and just start praying. So I do just that. Finish praying, whatever. I go to my sister's room. As I'm going to reach for her doorknob to open her door, I just see her doorknob just turns by itself. It just turns, like you physically see it turn, and it just opens. It opens, and my sister's dead asleep on the other side of the bed, on the other side of the room. Sorry. And I was just like, at this point, I was already used to a lot of stuff, so I was like, I don't know what you are, but you could just stay in here. And I closed the door. Go check on everybody else. asleep. I'm like, okay, going back to the room with my brother, and as I'm getting ready to go to sleep, get my blanket on, get all comfortable in bed, suddenly I hear, I'm like, who is it? They're knocking on the bedroom door. I'm like, who is it? I'm like, Crystal, if it's you, I'm gonna beat you up. Because my sister always played prank, and then you's here. I'm like, oh, okay. So I get up, I open the door, and nobody's there. I look around, and I'm just like, I don't know what you are, but I'm trying to go to sleep, so leave me the fuck alone. That's all I said. Go back in the room, close the door, and at that point it stopped. I went to sleep like nothing happened, and yeah, woke up the next day, everything was fine. But you know, I have a lot more stories. This isn't even like the scariest one that I've ever had happen. Like, I've seen like hands come out of the closet. I've had a little ghost boy follow me, and some lady didn't want to come into the house because she said something's following me. You know, I've had something trying to close me into the restroom. You know, I have so much more. I've seen so many things, and like, out of everybody in my family, like, you know, why me? But I mean, it's cool now. Like, I'm used to it. Like, I kind of just like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, kind of just not. I just push it off more now.
I have been umming and ahhing about whether or not I want to do this video for two reasons. One, the Audacity Stitch trend has been all over my For You page this weekend, but I'm like a month late to it being called to talk about, and that gives me the ick. But also, I don't make content on this channel anymore, so I don't know if anyone's here or if anyone cares, but then I just sort of figured this story is so crazy that actually it's quite nice to put it in a video so that I don't forget any details, because it wasn't that long ago. And I've told my friends and I've told some family, and everyone's like, that is nuts. So I was like, well, if anyone does care about it, then we can have a conversation about it and I can share a couple more stories. But to give context, I have always felt like the heebie-jeebies, do you know what I mean? Like a sixth sense, spidey sense. Something's going on. Like, I would never go upstairs on my own. I would always have to be escorted because I'd feel like there's somebody watching me in the hallway, little things like that, like going on holiday feeling like I'm not alone, loads of little things. But it really got validated like 2 years ago, where my grandma on my mum's side passed away, and it was kind of sudden. She lived like 3 hours away, so we didn't get the chance to go up there. We were told there was more time, and it kind of happened quite quickly, and we were like, so anyway, probably like 2 or 3 weeks after she had passed, my mum had gone up to the house and seen my uncle, and they had cleared things in the house. I didn't go. Actually, none of us did. It was just my mum. But I had this super vivid dream, like, you know, the type where you feel like it's real. It was wild. And basically in this dream, it's me, my brother, and my grandma, who we call May. So it's me, James, and May. And we're in May's house. In my head, it's her house. In actuality, it's like not her house at all. It just, in my head it was. And she's walking around clear as day, and she's talking to me and James are clearing things out of her house in my dream. And she's going, yeah, you know, like, now that I'm past, now that I've gone, there's some things I want you to have, and blah blah. And I was like, me and James were going, May, like, stop being silly, don't talk like that, like, dismissing it. And she's going, no, we need to like face the fact. And she was really aware, talking to me and James, she was really aware that she was no longer part of this world, right? She then goes, come with me, I've got some things I want to show you. And we're like, okay. So we walk upstairs, and on the bed is our cat, and our cat had passed away like 2 years before my grandma had. And I was like, Tango! The big fat ginger Fluff was on the bed. And I was like, no way, Tango, oh my god. And I went over and I was snuggling with him, and I was like, May, this is so cute. And behind me, May and James are talking, and she's going, yeah, there's a few things that I really want to show you. And James, all of a sudden, James behind me is going, oh my god. And I was like, what? And he's like, look what May's just given me. And he turns around in a box, and there's like an old men's watch. And I was like, that's cool, where's that come from? And May was like, it's your granddad's, you should have it, it's yours. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know. And then she goes, Victoria, there's something I really need you to have. And she's going, you know, there's jewelry, there's so much, but like, there's this one thing that I really want you to have. She roots around in the wardrobe and she pulls that out, and she is emphatic about it, like she is buzzing, and she's like, you need to have this. And I look down, and it's a matchbox, and I was like, that is so weird. James goes, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. and May's going, it's a matchbox, it's like so old, your granddad gave this, you have to have it. She was so adamant that I had to have this little matchbox, and I was like, okay. And then I woke up and I was like, that was crazy vivid, like so much detail, so much communication, so much like awareness that she was no longer here. I have to tell someone. So I went onto my group chat with my mum and my brother, and I was like, guys, this is gonna sound real freaky, and hear me out, but I've just had a crazy dream. Recounted the dream to them, and my mum was like, I don't know, like, your uncle has the watch, like, that's nothing new, and I don't know anything about this matchbox. And I was like, yeah, I figured that's the case, but just in case you see anything, let me know. But it's probably nothing like this has ever happened before, FYI. Like, I've never hallucinated or had nothing like that, so this was like so random. Anyway, 2 days later, me and my mum go to a cafe, and we sat down, we're chatting away, having a coffee, and she goes, that dream that you had? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, tell me about it. So I explained the story, and she was like, can you describe what you saw? And I was like, well, you know, she was talking about like jewelry, but also she got this matchbox out and she was so excited about it. And I was like, it was little it's from Little. It was little, it was super old, like you could tell that it used to be white, but now it's kind of like tea stained, had like red markings on it, but I didn't see anything inside. She just wanted me to have it. And she was like, you know how I went to May's house like 2 weeks ago to go and clear things out with your uncle? And I was like, yeah. She was like, I found a matchbox. And I was like, what? I was like, am I gifted? What's going on? And I was like, no way. And she was like, yeah, but it just had like pearls in it. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, like looks like a necklace, like pearls or bracelets or something had been broken, and they were all kept in this matchbox. And I was like, fuck off. It's like, she told me about jewelry and she wanted me to have this. That's jewelry in that matchbox. I was like, you need to, I was like, please tell me you've got it. And she was like, no, I threw it in like a bag that's going to the charity shop. I just thought it was like trash. And I was like, do you know what? It happens. Maybe there was something there, who knows. Anyway, my mum was obviously thinking about this the whole way home, and she calls my uncle and she goes, Phil, have you got those bags of the charity like stuff? And he was like, well, I gave it to charity like yesterday morning. And she told him the story, and he was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. Here's the number to the charity shop, so call him. And she calls this guy, and there's probably like I don't know how many bin bags, but there's a lot of bin bags of stuff in there, like clothes, items, ornaments, all sorts of stuff that you just don't have any use for. We kept the sentimental bit, do you know what I mean? And she calls this guy who she's never spoken to, and she goes, I'm going to sound mental, but my brother came in here 2 days ago with a load of bags, and there's one thing. And she told him the story, and he was like, oh yeah, I know that matchbox. It's got like pearls in it. Yeah, I thought it was rubbish, but I just kept it to like one side for some reason. And she was like, no. It's like, why would you keep that to one side? There's just a like grotty old matchbox with like broken part. Like, why would you? I don't get it. Anyway, so she then, next time she goes up to where my my uncle lives and where my grandma lived, she goes to this charity shop, and he keeps them for her, and she gives them, and she shows me this matchbox, and I was like, get in the bin. That is the exact thing that I explained. I couldn't believe it. It was freaking me out. And then she was like, and also she was like, behind closed doors, because I didn't want to like freak you out, I've been looking through photo albums to try and figure out what the pearls are. And she was like, they're not real. But when I got to the wedding photos of my granddad and my grandma, she's wearing a pearl necklace with those pearls. And so, to make sure that you've got the receipts, because I know some of you are going to call shit, and that's fair enough, because I would, but I swear on my dog's life, she brings me this matchbox, and I put it in this little, I got this like ornament made. Look, the tea stained with the red, it's old, and there's a couple of the leftover pearls because we got them made back into the necklace that was on her neck for the wedding. So these are like the pearls that were in the matchbox, and there she is. This is what my grandma handed to me in my dream. Just to round this up, because I realised I didn't say it, the like logistical brain that my other half and my dad have been doing is like, you obviously have seen it. I have never been through her wardrobes, I never went through her stuff, I never went through cupboards, like I just had never done it. I probably stayed in her room 3 times when we stayed over, and I was literally in the room, in bed, in toilet, leave. That's it. So I have never been through her house. I have no recollection of any matchbox or watch or anything, of like nothing, absolutely nothing. So the whole thing's crazy. I am, you know, gifted queen. Anyway, this is like an 8-minute TikTok, so that's enough now. Anyway, okay, bye.
quick little story time before I go to bed. I apologize in advance if I'm whispering, but baby girl's asleep. So anyways, so when I was in Haiti, after a full day of playing with my friends, nighttime, what we would do is we would sit around under the full moon and tell each other stories, including scary stories. And we were all from different families, from different places. So there was tons of stories going around. And there was this one particular friend. She started telling stories of how her family is into voodoo, and that when she was born, she was buried alive for 3 days and 3 nights. And yes, that's actually a thing. Usually when you're born into families that where voodoo is their culture, it's like a protection thing for the baby. Anyways, the baby's born, you do some kind of ritual on the baby, and you bury the baby alive for 3 days and 3 nights. And yes, the baby survives. Anyways, growing up for her, lots of weird things always happened to her, obviously. Like, she would get whooped at night by spirits if she did something bad. She would encounter zombies all the time. But out of all these things, in my opinion, the worst thing about them all is the fact that she told me that her family married her off to a Loa. So obviously that's something that is stuck with her for the rest of her life. And if she ever don't want any part of it, it's gonna take a lot of work, a lot of fasting, a lot to get rid of that. Anyways, so her family is preparing her and everything as she grows up, and they always told her that she can't have boyfriends, and she may not even be able to get married in the future, but if she does, she has to ask the Loa for permission. And whoever that might propose to her, she has to present him to the Loa, and the Loa has to approve. He says that she's never alone. The Loa and a lot of other things follows her everywhere she goes. Now imagine hearing that at a young age on a full night at nighttime with no electricity outside. Us kids were terrified, and it's safe to say that we didn't really play with her as much anymore. Y'all, I've told y'all some stories before, but this one, oh my God. You know what? I'm gonna make this one part. I'm just gonna have to hear this. So there's this girl, and she told me this story from when she used to live in Haiti when she was younger. Her dad was in the US, but she used to live with her mom and her siblings in Haiti. And they had this neighbor, this lady, and she called her auntie because her and her mom were really close. If she wanted to, she can sleep over her house to play with her kids. They were that close. And so one day she went over to their house to sleep over at her auntie's house. And, she went over there, she was playing with her kids and everything. And then it was time for bed, and they were watching TV, waiting for themselves to fall asleep. And all of the other kids fell asleep except for her. She couldn't sleep. And so she was just there watching TV. And at one point she got thirsty. And at this point she's thinking everybody is sleeping. So she goes to get her some water, and so she can go back to the living room. And since it was a sleepover, yes, they were sleeping in the living room. I used to do that too. We would all lay on the floor. It's so much more fun than you think. And so I don't know if you guys know, some of you guys may know, but the water is the little packets of water, and it's a little plastic bag of water. So she goes to the kitchen, she goes to the cooler, she gets the water, and as she's about to go to the living room, she notices somebody standing in the doorway of her aunt's room. And she wasn't gonna really pay any mind to it because it's probably just her auntie, but it was just the way the person was standing there, eyes open, not blinking, staring into one corner of the house. And so she's like, "Hey auntie, I thought you were sleeping." And she didn't respond. So she's like, "Auntie, are you okay?" And at this point she starts to be spooked out, and so she's like, you know what? She's a Haitian girl that grew up in Haiti. She knows better. She's like, I'm not going to question anything. I'm just gonna go back. And if anything, my house is right next door and I will go home. And as she's about to walk away, she hears this. Which translates to, they're coming. Tell your mom and dad that they're coming. Out of nowhere, she starts hearing drums to go along with what she's singing. She doesn't know where the drums are coming from. She just hears drums that's going along with her singing. And at this point, she's scared. Yeah, she's terrified. And before she knew it, she starts dancing. I mean dancing. The whole... Mama, papa, ya vini. And she's like all over the kitchen, dancing. So she runs to wake up the kids. She wakes up the kids. She's like, oh my God, something is happening to your mom. I don't know what's happening. Something's happening. And so the kids get up and they see their mom in the kitchen and they didn't even budge. They were just like, oh, that's just Giddy. And they tell her, oh, that's just the Loa that possesses her sometimes. The Loa that she serves, she'll be fine. Let's just go back to bed. She's like, what do you mean? Do you not hear the drums? And they're like, yeah, I just told you that's the Loa. So you just gotta ignore it. Let her do what she does and it'll be over sooner than later. And she's like, actually, I think I'm gonna go home. The kids are like, oh my gosh, stop being such a scaredy cat. She's not gonna do anything to you. Let's just go back to sleep. And they leave and they go back to sleep. Except she couldn't go back to sleep after that. Especially while the drums are still going. She is still dancing. And she goes to the kitchen. And y'all, at this point, their mom is naked. Like completely naked. Like birthday suit naked. Dancing, singing. And at this point, she really wants to go home. But she wants to call her mom. But she doesn't have a phone. But her auntie has a phone. But she can't use her auntie's phone because her auntie currently is possessed by a Loa. And she is not allowed to go outside by herself, even if it's to go next door. It's nighttime. It's Haiti. Like, she knows better. The kids aren't listening to her. The kids are just like, it's normal. This is normal. Y'all, at this point, she's screaming, dancing, and y'all know what she does? She goes in the kitchen. She gets the hot sauce. And if you know, it ain't no little hot sauce you get from the corner store. This is Haitian made hot sauce that the peppers has been in that vinegar with the seasonings for months, probably. She gets the hot sauce. She sits on the floor. Mind you, she's butt naked. She opens her leg and she starts to pour the hot sauce on her vagina. Now, I have heard stories before when people catch Loa, they catch Gede, and they do that. Like, I've heard stories. My grandma has told me stories. I never actually saw it for myself with my own eyes. But when the girl told me that, I was like, oh my God, you experienced that? Like, I've heard stories, but I've never actually experienced it. This lady is pouring pure hot sauce on and in her vagina, y'all. And she doesn't feel a thing. She goes right back up to dancing like it was usual. And at this point, she said, fuck this, I'm going home. And so that's exactly what she did. She ran outside, she went next door, she was knocking on her barrière, which means her gate. And it took a while because there's the gate and then there's the actual house and the front door to the house. Her dad heard her knocking on the thing. He came out, opened the gate for her. She's terrified. She's crying. She's in tears at this point. And her dad is like, well, what happened? And she explained to her dad, like, what was happening. And her dad is like, oh, okay, well, let's just go to bed. We'll take care of this tomorrow. Come to find out, y'all, she does this all the time, for real, like the kid said. Even with the whole pouring the hot sauce on her vagina, she does this all the time. And she does not feel it after she does it, but she does feel it when the Loa leaves. When it's just her, she feels that burn. That infection came. But at the same time, it's not her that was doing it. She pays for the price afterwards. Sometimes she'll even go to the hospital because of how bad it gets. And for some reason, she wasn't allowed to go over there anymore. Every time she would ask questions, like to her parents would never give her an explanation. But they were still close, like they still spoke and everything. Their parents still spoke. She just wasn't allowed to go over there anymore. So I'm assuming she wasn't supposed to see that. And her parents knew dang well what that lady was up to and what she was doing. But yeah, y'all, oh my God, like I've heard stories about this before, but when she told me that, I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, there's people out there pouring hot sauce in their vagina. If you like this story and you have your own crazy ass story that you want me to tell, go on my Instagram, make sure you're following me, send me the story as a voice message, and don't forget to click the link in the bio and get my merch. And of course, thank you to the ones that already ordered. I love you guys' support. I'm gonna have better merch coming soon, but I just wanted to see how you guys do with this one first before I start giving y'all the good stuff.